Hello there. Today we're gonna be talking about I actually don't know what to talk about. I'm just gonna make like a random rant. Do my best, my best. Oh, what do I stand for? You know what? We're gonna talk about what I stand for instead. This is a good rant, okay? What do I stand for as a person? So I might consider myself libertarian or natural rights per se. That humans have the ability to defend themselves, have the ability to do all this stuff in nature. And, you think about it, right, in nature, and you think about our atmosphere today. What is the main thing we have that our ancestors didn't? Well, we could trade with other people, to other groups of people more often than our ancestors used to. They only had like a few tribes to trade with. But nowadays, I could trade with another tribe. I could trade with Amazon. I could trade with Walmart. I could trade with all these other tribes, right? And so the majority of my wealth comes from trade. It doesn't come from theft. It doesn't come from taxes. It comes from trade, which is beautiful, right? But there are some parts of society where theft is still allowed. Politicians, anything working with government technically is theft. Arguably, you are technically doing a service for the voting bloc, whatever. Obviously people who steal at grocery stores and rob liquor stores and gas stations, those people are probably the worst of the worst. If they can't afford to live, we're going to give them a free place to live in jail. So I guess that we do give them a free place to live. It's not going to be the best place to live. But if you can't afford life, you might as well go to jail. I mean, that's basically the argument I would say. My mom is like, oh, it's the reason they're stealing all these purses this is what my mom always says. They're stealing all these purses from the rich person's store. Is because, the rich person has all this stuff and they're poor and they see all these purses and they want to feed their families. They want to sell the purses. I'm like, that's kind of a stupid reason to steal a rich person, but. Okay, you will eventually go see a jail cell. I don't know if you'll be able to see your kids, but my mom's always like, oh, they gotta feed their families. I'm like, I don't think most of these people who are stealing stuff have families. Maybe they do, but I mean younger, like kids. They might have kids. In that sense, they're a bad role model for their kids, but they do have kids. I mean, at least the father gets a free home. The kids are probably going to either get a foster home or they're going to be with a single mom. Because most of the guys who are stealing all these rich purses, there might be a few girls, but it's a lot of these guys that are like stealing stuff. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of single parents out there after that. But when you saw that in Philadelphia, you're like, no, I don't need to sympathize with these people. There is plenty of money in Philadelphia. I don't know the government's regulated the crap out of the business industry, right? And there's this myth going around, and this is a very, 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 very sad, that machines take jobs. No, machines do not take jobs in itself. It is government with machines that take jobs. When the government regulates the private industry with minimum wage laws and all this crap, right? Business restrictions. And then you have machines, that is when you take employment. That's when you take somebody's usefulness out of the market. You could also reduce the amount of production based on minimum wage stuff, too. Right? Again, voluntary transactions not the same as slavery. And people are like, oh, minimum wage is like the same as slavery. No, it's two people agreeing that we should pay for this, that the employer and the worker have agreed for that wage. Okay? The employer is just as much in competition with other employees for workers, and just as much trying to stay alive, just as much as the employee. Right? Now, again, they might have a little bit more capital than the employee, but that doesn't change the fact that it's still a trade network. Like, you think about Walmart, McDonald's, all these companies are paying almost double federal minimum wage. Right? Maybe not state wages, but it's double minimum wage. If they weren't paying double minimum wage, why would they? Why? It's because of the competition. They would lose all their employees. If Chick-fil-A didn't pay above minimum wage, they would lose all their employees at McDonald's. Same thing with McDonald's. If McDonald's had paid minimum wage, they would lose all their employees at Chick-fil-A. There is competition there, right? There's a reason why school teachers get paid so low is because there is no competition. It's a monopoly, and the teachers union does a good job at raising the wages, but it's the value, the wages are too high for the monopolization of our education system. It's just too high. You either need to split apart the schools in order to justify the wages, or you need to pay the teachers, because right now we are subsidizing our taxes, our debt, actually, our national debt, subsidizing teachers, which is not a good thing. I would argue going into debt for education is not a good thing when it comes, at least collectively. Individually, I'm okay with it. Individually, okay, you take out students, it's fine, right? But for our kids, you want future generations to pay for this generation's kids for education. Okay. And I'm looking at, there's some videos that teachers are posting, like, these kids are in 7th grade and they can't read. I'm at myself, this is the problem with monopolies. This is the problem with government-ran stuff. I haven't seen a government-ran monopoly run more efficient than the private sector. Very unlikely that it does. Maybe when it comes to the military it does, but outside the military and some militaristic technologies, like the Soviets were really good at promoting technology in some regard. But like even like the iPhone, right? That wasn't military style technology. That was made by Apple. Now Apple did probably get funding from the central hierarchy government, but if you think about it, right? Like if there was no demand for the iPhone, then the iPhone wouldn't exist. Basically, like Steve Jobs created the demand for the iPhone. If it wasn't for Steve Jobs, I don't think the iPhone would have existed. Maybe it would have, but maybe not in its current form that it does today. Right? Now again, I don't know. You could argue that if iPhone would exist without Steve Jobs, I don't know. It's very hard to argue one way or the other, I guess. But like that's a hypothetical. You can't. Economics is so complicated that I hear a lot of socialists say, "Oh, because of taxes that fund the iPhone's production, the government made the iPhone." Not really, but okay. Per se, I guess you could argue that. But what am I for? This rant was supposed to be what do I stand for? So I stand for pro-Second Amendment, pro-gun. I don't want licenses on guns. I'm very, very pro-gun. In fact, I think we should subsidize guns. We should be teaching that in high school. Anti-monopoly, anti-government monopoly on stuff. School is a perfect example of why government monopoly sucks ass. No one likes school. Okay, that's why school is boring and dumb, because it's monopolized. So I'm pro-gun, anti-monopoly, pro-free trade, obviously. I believe that we should legalize the sale of organs. These family members aren't making any money from their loved ones dying, selling their organs to the hospitals are making bank, right? But in countries where they legalize the sale of organs, not only does the organ trade go up, right? The amount of available organs go up, but the doctor's not the only one making money. The parents the people who suffered, the family members that suffered from their loved one dying, get at least something from it. I don't understand. I hate the argument saying, "Oh, if you legalize organs, people are going to die unnecessarily." No, that's not going to happen. You've increased the amount of organs though in the market, which I think is a fantastic thing. But there's so many stupid government regulations. They justify safety over people's liberty. It saddens me. It really does. It's just crazy to me. But anyway, the Philippines, guess what happened? They restricted the organ trade. Guess what? The amount of available organs went down. Now innocent people have to die because you care more about the safety of the people who are giving away organs more than the families who now have to wait for those organs. It's a trade-off. You can't have one or the other. You have to trade off. But whatever. Okay. But yes, I'm pro-free trade, pro-Second Amendment, pro-immigrant. Because again, we don't want to turn North Korea. I already made a video on this. I think a few days ago, I made a video on why we don't want to be North Korea. We need to be as pro-immigrant as we can be, while promoting our values as Second Amendment, pro-free trade, less restrictions on the stuff. I am pro getting rid of Department of Education, Department of Agriculture, getting rid of all these departments. They're stupid. They're dumb. Maybe we should keep the Department of Agriculture. I don't know, right? But if we have a Department of Labor and it doesn't do anything, We have this stupid guy named Robert Reich who ran it in the 90s, and he's still talking about the fact he ran it. He's all famous, all powerful, because of the stupid labor department, and he's not even a professional economist. He doesn't even understand what he's talking about. I listened to all his videos, and he's a dumbass. He's a complete dumbass. I listen to every single one of Robert Reich's videos. I'm sorry. Every time he talks about, the rich are taking away people's wages. No, it's a voluntary transaction between the people working and the people who provide the jobs. If you want to have a job, you make the jobs yourself then. Have the workers collectivize and make themselves their own jobs. I'm completely okay with trade unions. I just don't want to force other people to pay for them. What's so bad about that? Like, Robert Reich wants to force everyone to pay for these trade unions. I'm like, okay, this is dumb. Robert Reich's saying very common sense things too. That I'm like, I already knew that. He's like, Robert Reich's like, most trade unions were private. And then, he says that's a myth. It's mostly public. And that makes sense because the public sector doesn't have to worry about profit and loss. All they have to worry about is the amount of taxes coming in and how much they get paid for those taxes, or the debt actually. We don't even spend, we borrow. We borrow future generations' money for the current education system we have. And we're not talking 1 or 2 generations. We're talking 3 generations of people who are going to have to pay for this person's education. Like, that is scary. Like, my brothers, like, right after my brother's generation, we are paying about 3 generations worth of money. This for all the school teachers collectively. Do you think that's sustainable in any way? No, it's not. But the school teachers are still going to say, I need more money. The supply and demand is not working. Like, normally, being a caretaker is not economically viable. It's never been throughout the history of mankind. If it would have worked the first time, and it would have worked throughout history, it would have been a good thing. But because it's seen throughout history that every time you use caretakers' money, you pay caretakers, and that's the first sign of decline in your society. The Roman Empire declined because the caretakers made too much money. Caretakers don't, if they make too much money, they will collapse society. It's just the honest truth. Roman Empire is the perfect example. Look at that country. Look at the Holy Roman Empire. Perfect another example. The priests were making way too much money. The Protestant Reformation happened. Guess what? The bureaucrat teachers started breaking apart society based on the fact they wanted more money. Do we really want to be like the Holy Empire? Do we really want to bow down to academia? Or are we going to stand up and be like, no, you need to understand supply and demand. Caretakers throughout all of human history. You think someone would have already tried that in the first place? We're doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. The supply and demand doesn't matter if people can't live. I'm like, you guys are idiots. Like, there's a reason why teachers don't make a lot. It's because the supply and demand is not justifiable for teachers' wages. They're just not. I'm sorry. First off, it's a hierarchy. It's I don't know what you call it, but a pyramid scheme, basically. A pyramid scheme with money. With college debt. It's just not sustainable. I'm just sorry. But it's just not. But yeah, I mean, I'm pro-Second Amendment, pro-immigrant, pro-free trade, pro-anti-monopoly. I don't know how I would get rid of the government's power, but I think the best way to get rid of government power is what Warren Buffett told us. Which, I think I've already mentioned this before in one of my videos, but I'm kind of jumbling up all my videos together. Is Warren Buffett said any politician that spends over 102% of our GDP should not go for re-election. That should be like a rule or a law somehow. And I don't know how you would enforce that exactly, but okay. I would argue that's probably a good law. So, anything over 2% of 100% of the GDP, yeah, I could see that being a good thing right there. I think that's actually sustainable. Actually, his law would be a little bit sustainable. Not like, over 90 years, but eventually somebody would be smart enough not to spend over 2% of GDP and eventually would recover. But yeah, it's just crazy to me that the amount of insanity that we have in the society. People don't understand. There are some women, especially I've heard some teachers even say this. The reason why teachers don't get paid a lot. I don't know why I'm talking about teacher salaries, because I think I talked about it before in one of my videos, but no one watched that video, so I'm gonna just bring it up here. I'm gonna talk about why teachers make less money than everybody else. Not to insult them, but I'm just going to make a video on it, right? Reason why they always say, oh, because females, there are more females in the industry than men. And men control the industries that make the most money because they're men. I'm like, that's not the reason. The reason why is caretakers never have made that much money. Even when there are men only raising kids, they were not making money raising their own kids. They were making money going and trading with other people. Trade is what, like, internal in a household is not trade. That's just you giving your child something. Your child's not giving you something. There's no voluntary transaction. There's no wealth being built in a household. Now, there might be efficiency built in a household. Like, for instance, the mother's job back in the 1950s and 60s was the coupon. The father would make all the money, and the wife had to make sure that money went as far and as long as possible. Nowadays, that lifestyle is kind of unhealthy, but back in the day, it used to work very well. And like, again, like I would love for that kind of system to be today, but we don't even have really. Coupons are kind of like a mess now. But like, like, caretaking has never been profitable. I'm sorry, you cannot make profit in that industry. There's no trade going on in that industry. What are you doing? You're teaching kids. Are these kids giving you anything in return for your teaching? Not really. In the future, they might become engineers, mechanics, but that's the thing. It's such a long-term thing. The trade, what do you call it? When you say, it's a large turnover, or what do you call it? Not large turnover. Slow turnover, right? You know how, like, milk, right? Every 2 weeks you buy milk, or every week you buy milk, right? That's a fast turnover, right? Students are such a low turnover that it's just not profitable to be a teacher. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. Education, right? You get educated for 12 years. Guess what? You either don't have a job or you do at the end of that. First off, half the people that get an education aren't using the education to get a job for it. Therefore, we basically have ruined the efficiency of a 12-year program, okay, or even the non-efficiency of it. It's actually not really that efficient at all. And secondly, it's gonna take years to pay off, because you just wasted that kid's future, or that kid's past. Now he's gonna waste his future thinking about ideals that are socialist that aren't gonna actually work, because they think teaching is actually profitable. And that's stupid. It's never been profitable throughout the human history. And every time that academics have tried to take over society, look at the Soviet Union. That collapsed because a bunch of academics decided to take over at the 1980s, 1990s. You could see a bunch of teachers taking over, and they just didn't understand how economics worked at the end of the Soviet Union. In fact, they didn't really understand at the beginning of the Soviet Union, but that was just Joseph Stalin being an idiot and purging everybody. Either way, I don't really like the Soviet Union, but I'm not a communist by any means. In fact, the labor-share value doesn't work. Everyone knows this. At least most economists do. I don't know how often do I have to say the labor-share value doesn't work before people actually get the message? How often do I have to say it? I mean, I'm not famous by any means, but like, come on, guys. Like, you've not read any economics book? Have you not read economics that talks about why the labor-share value is wrong? No, you haven't. You're just as misled as this is any academic. Anyway, you are someone, I am someone else, talking about what I stand for: pro-immigrant, pro-free trade, anti-monopoly, kind of anti-government, but I do, I'm okay with some government. Goodbye.